ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति we have a question, we'll take that up and then we'll go into the text.
The chapter 2, some indicative definitions. Anandam வந்து நீங்க differentiate பண்ணிருங்க. That Anandam is different from Sukha and Dukkha அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு. இன்னொரு என்ன சொன்னீங்க? World has the potential to give Sukha and Dukkha சொன்னேன். But elsewhere we also said that world has no capacity to produce joy or sorrow. World is not the source of Sukha and Dukkha. So என்னோட டவுட் என்னன்னா பொட்டன்ஷியல்ங்கிறதுக்கு வந்துட்டு ஆதாரம் இருந்தா தானே பொட்டன்ஷியல் இருக்கும், ஆதாரம் இல்லாம பொட்டன்ஷியல் இருக்காது. இஃப் வேர்ல்ட் இஸ் நாட் த சோர்ஸ்னா பின்ன அதுக்கு பொட்டன்ஷியல் பாசிபிலிட்டி கிடையாது. பொட்டன்ஷியல் இருக்குன்னா சோர்ஸ் இருந்தாலும் ஸோ அந்த லாஜிக் படி பார்த்தோன்னா வேர்ல்ட் இஸ் த சோர்ஸ் ஆஃப் சுகா அண்ட் துக்கா அண்ட் இட் ஹேஸ் த கெப்பாசிட்டி பிகாஸ் வேர்ல்ட் ஹேஸ் த கெப்பாசிட்டி இட் ஹேஸ் த பொட்டன்ஷியல் தான் ரெண்டும் ஒண்ணுதான் அர்த்தம்.
The question is from chapter 2, Nature of God. One of the indicative definitions is Anandam, bliss. When we are explaining that Anandam, bliss, we are differentiating between the two things. Joy and sorrow versus bliss. Sukha and Dukkha. The world gives Sukha and Dukkha. Experiences is of Sukha and Dukkha. The bliss of Brahman is something different from Sukha and Dukkha. So in that context, she's saying I made a statement. Most of the statements I make, I don't remember, but the statement is the world has the potential for Sukha and Dukkha. In some other context, it is said, world has no potential, world has no joy or
it has no capacity.
It has no capacity to give joy or sorrow. So these two are contradictory, two contradictory statements. In all interactions with the world, there is when you are experiencing the world, when you are contacting the world, two things happens fundamentally, either Sukha or Dukkha. Everyone follow? Only two things happen, either Sukha or Dukkha, meaning joy or sorrow. You don't contact the world at all, as in the state of deep sleep. There is no joy nor sorrow. Where there is no world, where you do not contact the world, there is no joy, no sorrow. Everyone follow? Two statements made in two different contexts, if you mix up, this is the confusion. Two statements made in two different contexts. That is why in any question, you should always remember the context. In what context that statement is made? What is the statement? World doesn't have the capacity to produce joy or sorrow. World doesn't have the potential to create joy or sorrow. What is the context there? In what context that statement is made? You should connect to that. And then you should understand in what context this statement is made. If there are two different contexts, the statement has a meaning with reference to the context. We have always said this any number of times. In thinking, never take statements out of context. If you have worked on the context of these two statements, this question wouldn't have risen at all. The question is because of taking statements out of context. So what is the context when we say world doesn't have the capacity to produce joy or sorrow? What is that context? Where you complain about the world, where you are chasing the world, it's a different context. What is the context here? The context here is the indicative definitions of Brahman. In the indicative definitions of Brahman, one definition is Anandam. How do you differentiate Anandam? How do you differentiate Anandam from happiness? You got to differentiate. Otherwise, you are going through some happiness and you can misunderstand that happiness to be bliss, Anandam. That happiness that you are going through is not, the sukha that you are going through is not Anandam. Now to distinguish between the two statement is அது அப்படியே ஆஃபே பண்ணிடலாம் இல்லையா? You can switch off the recording only. Aunty herself is not liking the recording. So the very context to differentiate between the bliss. Sukha and dukkha arises as an experience. Go to the basics, it's very clear. Sukha and dukkha is an experience. Experience means two factors, subject and the object. So where there is an interaction between subject and object arises an experience, and that experience is of two fundamentally, sukha or dukkham. Are you able to follow? Now, when we say world has the potential to give joy or sorrow, what does it mean? What is the need for you to contact the world? Why are you even relating to the world? Why can't you stay away from the world? What is the need to relate to the world? Why are you so desperately chasing the world? For what? Because it has the potential to give. Because in you, the belief is there is a potential to give joy or sorrow. It's not only the potential, you experience joy or sorrow. Sit in the hot sun. There is sorrow. Sit in Antarctica wearing Chennai clothes. Sorrow. So definitely there is joy or sorrow. Here, what are we distinguishing between that and this? What is the distinction here? It's a common sense experience. What is the common sense experience? Contact produces sukham or dukkham. Anandam is not out of any contact. Anandam is the swabhavam. Anandam is intrinsic nature, which doesn't arise out of. So to distinguish between that, some explanation is given. So that is the context. So you should not mix up the context. Is it okay? Even generally also, in thinking, assuming that you are thinking, take statements in the context in which it is made. And context differs. When context differs, the meaning also differs. Is it okay? And in philosophy, words are used so liberally. We don't use, words are used so liberally. That is why you got to go by the spirit most of the time. One is context. Second is words are used very liberally. Deliberately they use the words liberally. Why? Because in that deliberate use, there is the chance for you to open up. Otherwise, your thinking is so narrow. You know, and then so what? Now I know. But that knowing doesn't bring any change. Here we are not interested in knowing. We are interested in bringing a transformation. Now, if transformation is the focus, the whole training is different. You can't have any, you have to be very fluid. Fluid doesn't mean you blabber. There is a context, there is a logic, there is a reason, and you take it in the, you take the sentences, you take the statements in the context. Okay. சரியா? This is on God. We finished chapter 2 and we are entering into chapter 3. The chapter 3 is called Manifest and Unmanifest. Two important words, the manifest and the unmanifest. Manifest is that which is understandable by the instruments. Unmanifest is that which is beyond the capability of the instrument. Again, I repeat, manifest means that which can be, that which is perceived, understandable by the instruments. Unmanifest means that which is not perceivable, that which cannot be understandable by the instruments. So, in the discussion of God, we talk about God as manifest and we talk about God as unmanifest. We talk about God as manifest and we talk about God as unmanifest. It is manifest and unmanifest. It is understandable, at the same time not understandable. If you say it is unmanifest, you have a fixation. If you say it is manifest, again you have a fixation. When it comes to God, there is no fixation. Manifest and unmanifest. That which is perceivable, understandable by the instruments. Something is perceivable by senses. Some things are understood by the mind. A few are understood by the intellect. So senses perceive, mind feels, intellect understands. That which the senses feel is manifest. That which the senses perceive is manifest. That which the mind feels is manifest. That which the intellect conceives of is manifest. All comes under the category of manifest. Therefore, when we talk about God, we talk about manifest God. That's where we are going to talk about the God and gods and plus the symbolism, etc. The manifest. And then comes the unmanifest. Unmanifest means beyond the capabilities of, beyond the instruments of the senses, the mind, and the intellect. And here we'll be discussing, we'll read the text and then I'll explain it. Here we'll be discussing the subtle intellect. All along we have been using the word intellect. In this context, we are going to distinguish between the gross intellect and the subtle intellect. And what is the role of subtle intellect in the manifest and the unmanifest. This is the chapter, the manifest and unmanifest. We'll read the first topic, subject and object.
Chapter 3, Manifest and Unmanifest. Subject and Object. The manifest world comprises perceptions of the body, emotions of the mind, and thoughts of the intellect. The world is the object of experience, while the self within the unmanifest subject of experience. Being the subject, the self cannot be experienced by the body, mind, and intellect. A human being is constituted of spirit and matter. Spirit is the Godhead, the Supreme Self, which remains unmanifest. Matter is composed of the body, mind, and intellect. The self in contact with the body, mind, and intellect forms the individual being, the ego, which experiences the manifest world. The self is the subject, and the individual is the medium through which the objects of the world are experienced. This phenomenon is akin to viewing the world through a telescope. The eye views the objects of the world through the telescope. The eye is the subject, telescope the medium, and world the object. The eye can see the entire range of objects through the telescope, except the subject eye. Similarly, the subject self can perceive objects through the body, feel emotions through the mind, conceive thoughts through the intellect, but cannot perceive, feel, or think of itself, the subject. The mass of humanity use the body, mind, and gross intellect to contact the world and are lost in perception, emotion, and thought. Besides these three equipments lies the subtle intellect which a human being alone possesses. The subtle intellect is the only equipment which can project the transcendental beyond the realm of the terrestrial world. But in the vast majority of humans, the subtle intellect is suppressed by the pressure of their mundane desires. Hence, the masses are unable to conceive the existence of the unmanifest reality that lies beyond the manifest world they experience. They are merely aware of the terrestrial world and unable to conceptualize the transcendental reality, God. Their problem of conceptualizing God is similar to primitive folks trying to understand electricity. The uncivilized, uneducated are unable to conceive how electricity works when their gross intellect is not sufficiently developed. The practical way to make them understand is to explain it in terms of its manifestation. Electricity, as such, without bringing in its manifestations, would be rather difficult for them to grasp. But by pointing it out as that which produces light in a bulb, heat in a heater, cold in a cooler, etc., they would then understand electricity as the source of these expressions. Similarly, the ancient masters elucidated, expounded the unmanifest reality God in terms of its manifestations as that which enables the body to act and perceive, the mind feel various emotions, and the intellect conceive thoughts. As God being the subject within that experiences and not an object of experience.
Now, what he's saying here is the first thing. There is a subject and then there is an object. With the eyes, the world is perceived, but the eyes are not perceived. Eyes are not seen by the eyes. With the eyes, you see everything, but eyes can't be seen with the eyes. What happens when you stand in front of the mirror? You don't see the eye, you only see the reflection there. Even there, you don't see your. Now, from this example, what do we understand? The self is the subject, individual is the medium through which objects of the world are experienced. The self is the subject, individual is the medium through which the world is, objects of the world are experienced. So, the misunderstanding is the individual is the medium or individual the you. The misunderstanding is the medium you have taken it to be you. It is like saying the telescope is seen. Telescope is not seen. Obviously, without telescope you can't see. But what is seeing? Is it the telescope or the eyes? It is the eyes that see, not the telescope. Similarly, the self is the subject. Self means Brahman, God. God is the subject. Individual is the medium. World is that which is experienced. The problem is not with the self. The problem is not with the world. Where lies the problem? The medium is misunderstood as the subject. The medium is misunderstood as the subject. All that Vedanta says is what? Do not misunderstand the medium as the subject. To distinguish this, you need the subtle intellect. That's what is saying. To distinguish this difference, you need a subtle intellect. Where there is no subtle intellect, the person will say, "Oh no, sir. The medium is the individual. Medium is the individual is the medium," is what we are saying. A person who doesn't have the subtle intellect will come and say, "No, I don't agree. For the subject is the individual." That is the difference. Those who do not have a subtle intellect will wrongly claim the medium as the subject. Those who possess the subtle intellect understands what the subject is different from the medium. And what is the medium? The body, the mind, the intellect. The combination of body, mind, intellect is the individual. The mass of humanity, he says, is lost in gross intellect. Body, mind, and gross intellect. All along we have been talking about the intellect, not really distinguishing it as gross and subtle. Now here we are distinguishing the intellect itself into gross and subtle. Gross intellect and subtle intellect. Gross because it deals with the manifest. Are you able to follow? Gross intellect, it is called as gross intellect because it deals with what? It deals with the manifest. It is called subtle intellect because it deals with the unmanifest. Are you able to follow? Again, I repeat. Why it is called gross intellect? It deals with the manifest. What is the manifest? Perceptions, emotions, and thoughts are manifest. And gross intellect is that which deals with the perceptions, emotions, and thoughts pertaining to the world. Thoughts and ideas and ideologies pertaining to the world is gross intellect. What is intellect? We'll discuss that. Then it becomes easy. Yeah. Intellect இருக்குதா இல்லையானே புரியல. அதுல gross and subtle வேற, isn't it? Whether is there a thing called intellect only is not yet very clear. And then you go into distinguishing itself into gross and subtle. What is intellect? The capacity to distinguish. The capacity to distinguish is called intellect. What is the capacity to distinguish means? The distinction between the wall and the door. The distinction between the wall and the door. You don't try to walk through the wall and you walk through the door. When the intellect is not developed, as in the case of the child, what it will do? It will go and hit itself against the wall. And then you say, come this side, go through the intellect. Are you able to follow? What is intellect? Intellect is the capacity to distinguish. Food and non-food. There is an apple, and then there is a apple in the shape. I don't know, plastic or I don't know what it is made of. Are you able to follow? You try to eat the real apple and you will not eat the non-apple. What is it that is helping you to distinguish? That instrument that helps you to distinguish between the two is called intellect. Are you able to follow? It means, what is the function of the intellect? From all this, what do we understand? The function of the intellect is to distinguish. Are you able to follow till now? The function of the intellect is to distinguish. This part of the intellect between the door and the wall, even the animal has. Even the animal has this distinction between the food and the non-food. Even the animal has this distinction. And what is the intellect in a human being? The capacity to distinguish. Function is the same. Are you able to follow till now? Function of the intellect is to distinguish. Why is it so relevant to human being? Because a human being has to distinguish between a few. Are you able to follow? What are the few? Karyam, akaryam. What to do, what not to do. The essential and the non-essential. Are you able to follow? He has to make this distinction. This distinction is what is called freedom of choice. This distinction is called freedom of choice. Other species don't need an intellect because they don't have to choose. if the calf from India is going to London to study, the calf from India is going to London to study. The mother calf need not tell the mother cow need not tell the calf what it need not tell. In the lecture கொடுக்க வேணாம். We have been vegetarians for generations. Don't go there and change. Are you able to follow? Don't go there and change, and don't bring disgrace to our family, community. And the calf also says, yes, I will obey. I will. Now, that lecture is not at all required because they don't have the freedom of choice. Where there is no freedom of choice, distinguishing factor is not required so much to lead life. In the case of a human being, every moment is a choice. Are you able to follow? Every moment is the choice. If I say clap, nobody is clapping because you have a choice to listen to what I am saying or not listen to. Again, I am saying clap. If you nobody is clapping, Prasad is only clapping. Correct. But nobody is. Why do I ask? I feel shy to. Are we school children or what? Kindergarten children or what? Clap, na immediately start clapping. Children will do that. Clap. They will start clapping. Are you able to follow? I have a freedom. What is the freedom? To clap or not to clap, or clap the way you want to clap. What instrument in you is making these choices? That instrument is doing this is called intellect. Are you able to follow? It means you have to use the intellect to exercise the freedom that you have. Are you able to follow now? It means you have to use your intellect to exercise the freedom. What is the freedom? You enjoy that freedom. What is the freedom? The freedom to choose. Therefore, the beauty of life is what? The choice. The beauty of life is the choice, the freedom to choose. Are you able to follow? Intellect is that which understands what? It has to make a choice and it distinguishes karyam, akaryam. What should be done, what should not be done. On what basis it decides what should be done, what should not be done. On what basis it decides? Based on understanding the consequences. It understands the consequences and then it decides. These are the consequences. Do you want to? Are you able to follow? Do you want to do it or you don't want to do it? Mind and the senses do not have the capacity to understand the consequences. They will simply, the mind and the senses don't have the capacity to understand the consequences. So what do? They simply go on experiencing. They go on interacting, they go on experiencing, they go on making choices. And when the consequences come, they don't understand why they are experiencing these consequences. Are you okay till now? That's why human being needs an intellect. And this intellect is of two, gross and subtle. Are you okay till now? Now comes the crux. The starting point of trouble. Easy. The starting point of the trouble comes now. What is the starting point of the trouble? The fact that you have the freedom to choose, it presupposes knowledge. Everyone follow? It presupposes knowledge. Intellect has the capacity to gain knowledge. Since you have the freedom of choice implies what? We said consequences, no? We said consequences and all that. Now, if I said consequences, it means knowledge of the consequences. Very simple. It means knowledge of the consequences. So intellect gains the knowledge of the consequences and accordingly makes the choice. And when it makes the choice, life becomes comfortable, manageable. So in level number 1, gross intellect, we talk about gaining knowledge so that life becomes comfortable, manageable. Manageable, comfortable means not so disturbed all the time, not so agitated, not so frustrated. Why? Because you know because you have gained some knowledge. What is the knowledge? What can't be cured has to be endured. Titiksha, knowledge. No problem. Everyone follow? What can't be cured has to be endured. Knowledge. You practice, so it implies knowledge. What instrument in you has the capacity to gain knowledge? Intellect is the capacity to gain knowledge. And this knowledge is of two types: worldly knowledge and self-knowledge. Gross intellect is used for worldly knowledges, subtle intellect is for self-knowledge. In Vedanta, in Thesis on God, what are we doing? The assumption when it comes to Thesis on God is you have a subtle intellect and you are aware of the subtle intellect and it is functioning. That is the assumption. Are you okay till now? The choice implies knowledge. Choice presupposes knowledge. This is where ignorance is not accepted. Ignorance is not an excuse, because since you are exercising the freedom, you are exercising the freedom, isn't it? You are choosing to exercise your freedom. Now, you will choose to exercise your freedom, but you will not want consequences. Are you able to follow? The problem of human life is what? You are exercising your freedom, but not wanting to take responsibility for the consequences. Vedanta comes and says, whether you like it or not, whether you accept or don't accept, you have to experience the consequences because you made the choice. But I didn't know that there is a consequence. I didn't know that I have to pay tax. I didn't know that red means stop. Driving lessons. First lesson in driving is what? Not ABC. Yeah. First lesson in driving is not ABC. First lesson in driving is what? Red means stop. Green means you can't say I will get into the car and drive, but I don't know. Red means stop. It means, would it be acceptable? No. Intellect understands ignorance is not an excuse. Ignorance is not acceptable. Therefore, it gains knowledge. What is the knowledge? The knowledge is of two. that which pertains to the world, that which helps you to manage the world, that which helps you to change the world. That is one type of knowledge, which is gross intellect. Distinct and different from gross intellect is subtle intellect, where it is self-knowledge. Those who are lost in the world are those who are lost in gross intellect. What is gross intellect? Lost in perceptions, emotions, and thoughts. What is lost in perceptions, emotions, and thoughts means involved in the world. Intellect is not penetrated enough to understand what the intellect didn't penetrate enough to understand. The individual, the subject is the medium. Everyone follow? The subject, what I call as the subject is the medium. What I call as subject is the medium. What I call as a subject, the body, mind, intellect is the body, mind, intellect is the medium. Gross intellect says body, mind, intellect is the subject. Everyone follow? Gross intellect says body, mind, intellect is the subject, world is the object. There is no such thing called God, Brahman, and all that. Subtle intellect comes and says, no. There is something beyond the manifest, beyond the medium. And the subtle intellect is pressured. The subtle intellect is pressurized. Now, what is pressurizing the subtle intellect? The mundane desires of the world suppresses the subtle intellect. And how much ever you suppress the subtle intellect, if not in this Janma, at least 100 Janmas later, it will start functioning. Why? That being the reality, you cannot escape. You cannot escape from that. It may not manifest now. It may not manifest now. Atmabodha gives a beautiful example from the Upanishad. It is like the lamp covered by the pot. Atmabodha. We did that example. Lamp covered by the pot. Light is there, but because of the covering, light is not seen. Light is not experienced because of the pot. Similarly, subtle intellect is the light. What is the pot? Mundane desires is the pot. In vast majority, the mundane desires are covering it up. Hence, the masses are unable to conceive the existence of the unmanifest reality. Hence, the masses are unable to conceive. What are they not able to conceive? The unmanifest reality that lies beyond the manifest world they experience. Everyone follow? Ignorance is to bring everything to the realm of experience. Ignorance is to bring everything to the realm of experience. And why they find it difficult? Why they find it difficulty to understand God? Because God is not the subject matter of experience. Or they try to bring God also into a kind of experience, which is not possible. So, how to help this vast majority of human beings? Vedanta comes up with explaining the God in terms of the manifestation and then slowly taking us to understanding the unmanifest. Just as electricity cannot be understood. In fact, the example that he's quoting here happened in reality. Sigmund Freud writes about it in his books. Sigmund Freud was living in the city. He had a friend visiting him from the village. And you know, those days traveling takes 4 days, 5 days, 7 days, very, very tiring and all that. So as soon as the person comes, what do? You don't start talking. Yeah. What do? You make them freshen up, relax, feed, and then finally start. So Sigmund Freud said, now that you have come, we will talk tomorrow. So freshen up, eat, and then he goes to, and then he said, sleep, and Sigmund Freud left the room. Next morning when he came to see his friend, he could see his friend didn't sleep at all. His friend didn't sleep at all. Eyes are still bloodshot red. He asked, why looks like you didn't sleep? Why you didn't sleep? He said, how can I sleep with the light? How can I sleep with the light? He said, what do you mean sleep with the light? Whole night he was trying to put off the light. And he is exhausted putting off the light. And how he was putting off the light the whole night? He knew only one way to put off the light in the village. What is the only way to put off the light in the village? These children, this generation don't know that, no? They just don't know. How do you put off the light? In the village, there is only one way to put off the light. What is the way? How can you put off the tube light by blowing it up? Sigmund Freud said, what a foolish fellow are you? What a foolish fellow you are. Can't you switch it off here? And then Sigmund Freud writes, so beautifully he writes, who is stupid here, me or my friend? Who is stupid here? Sigmund Freud says, I am that stupid. Because how did I assume that he knew it? Because the villager could not connect. What he could not connect? You touch something here, light will go off there. How he could connect? When remote TV came, my grandmother could not conceive how you can sit in here, you can switch on or switch off the television. Because in those days you have to go near the television and switch it on, change the channel. And why they kept channels in those TV, God only knows, because there is only one channel. Yeah. And then there will be channel. Nothing works. There will be only one channel. And that channel also you have to wait. 2 hours it will come. 5:30 it will start and 8 o'clock it will wind up. Oh, what a great entertainment. For that 1.5 hours. And the 1.5 hours lo kuda news. Yeah. That also we used to sit and watch. Why we watch that we don't know, but I used to sit and watch that also. That fellow will say, that he has to do this. Nothing will understand, but still, we will sit and watch. That fellow could not see. How to make that fellow understand? How to make that fellow understand? Electricity is unmanifest. How to make him understand? Sigmund Freud said, I had to teach him 3 days. You switch on here, it will here. You switch on here. That's the example he's giving here. The practical way to make them understand is what? He can't start teaching him electrical engineering now. He can't start teaching him Ohm's law, wattage. He can't start teaching him all that. So the practical way is what? Explaining it through the manifest. The unmanifest electricity is explained through the manifestations. Similarly, Vedanta, the unmanifest God, is explained through the manifestations, and the equipment that is used is subtle intellect. That's all he said. The equipment that is used to process and understand this is subtle intellect. That which produces light in a bulb is electricity. That which produces cold in a cooler is electricity. That which produces heat in a heater is electricity. What is electricity? Neither heat, nor cold, nor light. In a common sense way, some basic electrical I have studied. So, sir, maybe you didn't study electrical engineering. Don't start. From the simple observational standpoint. Those who lack subtle intellect has a problem of conceptualizing God, just as a person, an illiterate person, has this difficulty of conceptualizing electricity. And Vedanta is clear in saying, if you want to conceptualize it, use the right instrument. What is the right instrument? The subtle intellect. And what is subtle intellect? Subtle intellect is the capacity to distinguish between terrestrial and the transcendental. And human being alone possesses the subtle intellect. The tragedy is we believe other species possess subtle intellect. We believe other species. That's why we believe that elephant in a temple is elephant, not a Surdas, not a Mirabai. Correct? No, sir. உங்களுக்கு அந்த Guruvayur temple elephant, you don't know. If you know that elephant, what is the name of that elephant? Keshava. People started worshipping, there's so many houses they have there. Does anyone of you have that picture in your house also? Elephant. When you go to Guruvayur, there is a huge statue of that elephant. Elephant in a temple is also an elephant only, because no other species possesses subtle intellect. They all possess rudimentary gross intellect. They can be trained. They can be trained to do a few things because they possess rudimentary gross intellect. The subtle intellect is unique only to a human being. In that way, everything is unique. The physical features of a cobra is unique. The physical features of a lion is unique. The physical feature of a human being is unique. Therefore, you can say all are unique. But the only difference is monkey will never say we are unique. The elephant will never say we are unique. The human being alone says we are unique. Why? Because we possess the subtle intellect. We possess the subtle intellect. And what is subtle intellect? The capacity to posit, the capacity to conceive of a transcendental. Some may accept it, some may reject it. Some may accept it, some may reject it. The question is not about acceptance or rejection. The question is you can conceive. That ability to conceive, that is called subtle intellect. This is very important to understand. In all these classes in Vedanta, what are we trying? The subtle intellect. And it is the subtle intellect that differentiate the human being from the rest of the species. Other species have rudimentary intellect, which is enough for survival. Whatever is enough for survival, they have. Human beings need to develop it. Everyone follow? Lastly, intellect is the potential. It's not natural. Body grows naturally. Emotions come by itself. And the uniqueness of the human being doesn't come naturally. Are you able to follow? Body, whether you like it or not, are you able to follow? See, as long as you don't get diseased and you get food on time, body will continue to grow, isn't it? Assuming that you don't meet with an accident, assuming that you don't get diseased, assuming that you get food on time, body will continue to grow, whether you like it or not, isn't it? Odd shape, proper shape, that is different, but it continues to grow. Mind also, the emotion starts, but the most wonderful thing, the most important thing in a human being, the intellect doesn't grow. What? Doesn't grow naturally. Meaning effort is required. What is the effort? The effort to gain knowledge. Effort means what? Effort to gain. If intellect also grows naturally, classes like one by one. Yeah. We don't need Vedanta classes. We don't need discourses. We don't need textbooks. We all will know because it grows, no? But it doesn't. Effort has to be made to gain this knowledge. Effort has to be made to gain this knowledge. What is the effort? To distinguish between the terrestrial and the transcendental. So what do we do in other textbooks? Instead of straight away coming to the distinction between the terrestrial and the transcendental, we say at least strengthen the intellect to deal with the world properly first. There we talk about gross intellect a lot. What is gross intellect a lot? The few pairs. What are the few pairs? The essentials and the non-essentials. Distinguishing between the essentials and the non-essentials. Distinguishing between karyam and akaryam. Distinguishing between what needs to be done, what should not be done. Distinguishing between the permanent and the impermanent. When you start this distinction between the permanent and the impermanent, subtle intellect starts functioning. Are you able to follow now? First is karyam and akaryam. What should be done, what should not be done. That is one knowledge. Another knowledge is the essential and the non-essential. I'm not getting into those details because we have seen that enough. Are you able to follow? Karyam and akaryam. What should be done, what should not be done. Because you have the choice, you need this knowledge. Because you have the choice, you need to know what is essential and what is non-essential. Where you lack knowledge, what happens? You do that which you should not do. You avoid doing that which you should do. Are you able to follow? Akaryam will turn into karyam and karyam will turn into akaryam. First thing. Second is you will focus on the non-essentials so much that essential is forgotten. Every facet of life, we don't understand the distinction between the essential and the non-essential. Knowledge is required to say, first of all, there is this essential and the non-essential. You focus on all this, you gain all this knowledge, you are able to manage the world to some extent and etc. And then what happens? All this I am dealing with is so, all that I am dealing with is so temporary, so impermanent. Is there anything called permanent? Everyone follow? Okay, I am dealing with the world. I am not affected by the world. I am not affected by what is happening in me. I am not affected by what is happening around me. I am managing well. Looks like a heavenly life. Subtle intellect awakens and asks this question: what is this all to life, or is there anything beyond this? Is this all to life, or is there anything beyond terrestrial and transcendental? Another way subtle intellect wakes up is the real and the unreal. Okay, I'm managing all this, but certain parts are still unclear. What is it unclear? Origin of life is not clear. The end of life is not clear. Origin is not clear. The end is not clear. How can you have clarity in the middle? Origin is not clear. Origin is ignorant. The end is ignorant. How can you claim any clarity in the middle? That's what Nachiketas asks Yama. Origin is unknown, the end is unknown, only you know the origin and the end. Teach me that. Subtly, are you able to follow? Teach me that. What is the origin? I came into existence. And one day I came into existence. Why I came into existence, I don't know. What brought me here, I don't know. Why I was born, where I was born, I don't know. Are you able to follow? Okay, what is it that I am doing? That also, I don't know. Why I go to school, I don't know. Why I go to university, I don't know. Why I want to do masters, I don't know. Why I want to get married, I don't know. Why I want to produce children, I don't know. Why I want to divorce also, I don't know. Right through, everything is what? This is subtle intellect. Everything is, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Mundaka Upanishad. What is that one knowing by which all this I don't know gets clear? Are you able to follow? Everything is I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. When will I ever know? What is that one knowing by which all this I don't know becomes known? Subtle intellect is suffocated by ignorance. Subtle intellect wakes up because it is suffocated by ignorance. Comfortable with ignorance is different, but you can never be comfortable with ignorance for long. One day it will push itself out, and when it pushes itself out, how does it push itself out? Distinguishing between the terrestrial and the transcendental, the impermanent and the permanent, the origin of life, the end of life. You see a person living with you in flesh and blood. Something happens, few hours, the body is disposed, and you come back. It's completely gone. The question is, what happened? Able to follow? The question of Vardela, sir, where is the, when we do not know how to handle the next moment, why worry about? Are you able to follow? This is called subtle intellect. This is called subtle. And the subtle intellect is that which tries to go beyond the manifest to the unmanifest. Sukshma buddhi. Sukshma means subtle. It's called Sukshma buddhi, subtle intellect. Therefore, what they did, the unmanifest reality, they explained it through manifestation. The mistake that people did is what? They took a particular manifestation and they got stuck to that particular manifestation. It's like saying electricity is light in the bulb. One set of people got stuck to electricity means light. Another set of people got stuck. Electricity means heat. Another set of people got stuck. Electricity means cold. And now there is fight going on. What is the fight? Is electricity light or heat or cold? They kill each other. They kill each other. They destroy each other. They fight with each other. All because of what? Not understanding the manifest is because of you are not able to conceive the unmanifest. Since you are not able to conceive the unmanifest, the manifest is given to conceptualize, to make you visual. Why? Because in every human being, there is this natural distinction. In every human being, there is a natural distinguishing factor. What is the natural distinguishing factor? There is something between, there is something called terrestrial and there is something called transcendental. There is something called terrestrial and there is something called transcendental. Nobody comes and teaches you distinguish between terrestrial and transcendental. Naturally, the intellect does it. In all human beings. The question is, some takes the lead and pursue, most of them. Some takes the lead and pursue it. Most of them simply ignore it. Why they ignore it? Because of the pressure of the mundane desires. So what Vedanta does, first it removes the pressure of the mundane desires. First it removes the pressure of the mundane desires. When the pressure of the mundane desires is removed, it is like removing the pot. It is like removing the pot. The pot is removed, the light which is there already shines forth. By what light the light is seen? Its own light. By what light the light is seen? The pot covers the light. Now you remove the pot. By what light the light is seen? Its own. Because the swabhava is it. That's why knowledge is equated to light. It reveals itself and it reveals everything around it. Light has two wonderful qualities. That's why light is called the revealer. Knowledge is called the revealer. What does it reveal? Light reveals itself, as it is revealing itself, it reveals everything around it. Knowledge, that's knowledge. The light reveals itself and it reveals the objects in the room also. It reveals itself and it reveals what the world is also. So that there is no confusion at all. And this knowledge, the instrument is the subtle intellect. Knowledge is Vedanta. And what did they do? They employed this method. What is the method? Elucidating it through. They take the manifestations and they try to explain the unmanifest through the manifest. This is called symbolism. This is called symbolism. All the deities, the rituals, and everything is symbolic. Are you able to follow now? Religion is full of symbolism. And what is symbolism? Symbolism is nothing but through the manifest, the unmanifest is indicated. Through the manifest, the unmanifest is indicated symbolically. That is why all religions is full of symbolisms a lot. And then we are going to see the symbolisms. We are going to see the symbolisms, etc. The god, the goddesses, the Shivalinga, all that is coming. Yeah, even the Shivalinga, everything is coming in this chapter. The manifest and the unmanifest. As an introduction to the manifest and unmanifest, what we need to understand, the Shastras use the manifest to indicate the unmanifest. When they use the manifest, they say it is a symbolic representation, not to be taken literally. Not to be taken literally. Out of ignorance, the human beings take it literally. And when you take it literally, it's absurd. Because manifest is distinct and different from the unmanifest. How do you understand that? How do you understand the distinction? Chandra Shaka Nyaya. We have seen that already. Moon branch analogy. We have already seen that. The unmanifest is indicated through the manifest, and the manifest should not be taken literally. The mistake that people make in religion is they take the manifest literally. Those who start thinking understands the limitations of the manifest, and they turn into an atheist, saying, this is not, if this is what God is, there is no such thing called God. Why? Because they also take the manifest literally. Vedanta comes and says, don't take the manifest literally and believe that is God. Don't take the manifest literally to say this is not God. It is symbolic. The manifest and unmanifest. This chapter helps us to understand the symbolisms. Why everything is symbolic in nature. When you want to express, you need some tool to express. That is the manifest. That is the manifest. You want to express your affection. Affection is unmanifest. Affection is unmanifest. How would you manifest your affection? You can say hi. You can shake hands, you can hug, you can write off your entire property. There are so many ways in which the affection can be manifested. And how much ever the affection is manifested, what remains? The true affection remains unmanifest, because you will misunderstand affection by manifestation. Are you able to follow? If you misunderstand affection by manifestation, what you will understand? Affection means correct. Giving away your property. She has no property, though. Yeah, therefore she said, okay. Writing off a property. If you don't write your property, it is lack of affection. But then you understand that is only one manifestation of affection. That is not affection. Are you able to follow? This is called the chapter manifest and unmanifest. Though you need manifest in the beginning, when you mature, what do you understand? When you mature, you grow to rising above the dependency on manifestation. That is our intellect. Are you able to understand now? In the beginning, you need some manifestations, and then by the process of Shravana, Manana, listening, reflection, contemplation, etc., you rise above the need for manifestation and understand the unmanifest love in the unmanifest form itself. When you understand it like that, you will not get carried away by manifestations. Otherwise, you get distracted, carried away by manifestations. Clear? This is the topic, the manifest and unmanifest. With this, we conclude for today. And next class, we start with the next topic, the common factor. Any clarifications?
Yes, Mala has posted a few questions.
I'll come back. People get a high by exercising their arrogance and dominating over others. They like these consequences, and because of this attitude, their progress to understand experience a permanent is not there. Is arrogance due to raga? How to make them realize? You cannot make them realize. You can't make them. The question is how to make another realize. Realize what? Permanent happiness is not there in the impermanent world. How you can make others realize? You can make others realize only if you have realized. How do you know that you have realized? You will know. You will not be affected by Krodha, Lobha, Mada, Matsarya, Bhaya, Dvesha. All this you will not be affected by relatively. In the ultimate sense, you understand all this is one big drama, which has no meaning. This whole drama. What is this whole drama? There is the subject, there is the object, there is the gross intellect, there is the subtle intellect. You have to do this. All this is one big natak happens in the dream. All that you got to do is what? Simply wake up, get out of the dream. How to make them realize? Only if you have woken up. If you have not woken up, don't worry about making others realize. Is it okay, Mala? You can't realize. You can't make others realize. You means not you. I don't mean you. Anybody for that matter. How to strengthen the intellect? Sometimes it works, sometimes not. So sometimes it works, very good. Even that sometime working is enough. Mala is saying, sometimes it works, sometimes it is not. Emotions spoil the intellect. There must be some practical exercise. The more lecture lam kudutane irukadingo. We are fed up of these lectures and all that. What is the practical exercise? Manana is the practical exercise. Karma yoga is the practical exercise. What is the practical exercise? Combination of karma yoga and manana is a practical exercise to strengthen the intellect. Does everyone have the same level of intellect if the ignorance is removed? Question. Mala. Does everyone, within brackets, including Duryodhana, poor fellow, what did he do? Yeah. Does everyone, including Duryodhana, Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Hamsa, you can add. Mala, you can put, yeah, you can put everyone in that list. Does everyone have the same level of intellect if the ignorance is removed? Yes. Because in reality, all are Brahman. So it is not the level of intellect. In reality, all are Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya. In that Jagat, there is a Ravana, there is a Ramatirtha. In that Jagat, there is a Rakshasa, there is a Rishi. All this belongs to the Jagat, Mithya. So if the Mithya is removed, does all have the same level of intellect? Yes. That is why I said intellect is a potential. More you exercise it, more it becomes strong. Duryodhana is one who has not exercised it at all. In this classroom, we are not Duryodhanas, we are exercising it. We are exercising it. Who is a Ramana Maharishi or a Ramatirtha or a Shankaracharya? Those who have exercised, past tense. Are you able to follow? One set, exercise pannadu. Here we are exercising, present. Ramana Maharishi, Ramatirtha, Shankaracharya, and all exercised in the past. That's the only difference. So the difference is not of the intellect. The difference is the exercise. Is it okay, Mala? One more and we conclude. Yes.
One angle, world is manifest and Brahman is unmanifest. But from another angle, when we say that Brahman is beyond manifest and the unmanifest, what is that unmanifest there? Because world is unmanifest in the Pundita, Brahman is beyond both the Pundita. What is unmanifest in between?
Now, you cannot intellectually conceive the unmanifest. You cannot actually conceive it. What unmanifest cannot be conceived. The moment it is conceived, it becomes manifest. Are you able to follow? Unmanifest means that which cannot be conceived. Are you able to follow? Because the moment it is and the unmanifest that becomes manifest. Immediately it becomes manifest. It's no more unmanifest. Are you able to follow? Therefore, we are discussing only two words here. World is manifest, Brahman is unmanifest. We are not discussing the previous chapter, Kshara, Akshara and all, we are not discussing here. That is over. She is saying, world is manifest, Brahman is beyond manifest and unmanifest. Then what is unmanifest? That is the topic that we discussed in the previous chapter. Kshara, Akshara and Uttama Purusha. We are not discussing that here. Here we are discussing a vital aspect of learning. That is, the unmanifest is symbolically represented through manifest. Stick to this here. Don't connect it with that. Are you able to follow? Here what are we trying to describe? One of the important aspects of religion. What is the important aspect of religion? The symbolism. What is symbolism? the manifest. The manifest is used symbolically to represent the unmanifest. What are all the manifest we will see. And then how the unmanifest is represented through these manifestations. That all that we are going to see. But as on today, what is it that you got to understand? The manifest is used to represent, the manifest is used as a symbolic representation of the just as. That's why I gave the example of Sigmund Freud, the electricity example here. You cannot straight away understand that. How can you understand that straight away? You cannot. Therefore, you necessarily have to go through what? Manifestations. Through the manifestations, you kind of visualize the unmanifest. That is the play of, that is the role of symbolism in religion. Don't confuse that with, just because these two words are used, manifest and unmanifest, don't connect it with the previous chapter. Stick to the context of the chapter. Is it okay? With this, we conclude for today. Next session, we continue with the common factor.